If a man were to know the end of this day's business ere it come, but it suffices that the day will end, and then the end be known. And if we meet again, well, then we'll smile. And if not, then this parting was well made.
The decade brought war films that demanded unimaginable sacrifices from their creators. One Soviet director fought his own government for 8 years just to tell his story. A Hollywood legend's son died in a tragic accident during production. Another director mortgaged his house and nearly went bankrupt for a film that earned almost nothing. Here are 10 forgotten war movies of the 1980s. Number 10. Uncommon Valor, 1983. Gene Hackman led Hollywood's first go back and get your boys fantasy, launching a genre that would make Chuck Norris and Sylvester Stallone millionaires. But this wasn't just another action movie. Actor Wings Hauser wrote the screenplay after hearing real stories from fathers who never stopped searching for their missing sons in Southeast Asia. Producer John Milius brought his signature militaristic intensity to the project, crafting Hackman's brutal speech comparing Vietnam to a company that has gone bankrupt. Even with future stars like Patrick Swayze and an authentic military setup, Roger Ebert destroyed it as 2 hours of cliches, delivered with lead-footed predictability. The film's real crime wasn't bad filmmaking. It was forcing Americans to confront the uncomfortable possibility that their government had abandoned soldiers behind enemy lines. Number 9. A Soldier's Story, 1984. Norman Jewison created 1984's most uncomfortable war movie by exposing a truth Hollywood didn't want to tell. Sometimes, the enemy wears the same skin as you. This murder mystery starring Denzel Washington in an early role wasn't about white racism. It was about a black drill sergeant who despised his own soldiers and the black private who killed him out of rage and shame. While other films offered simple stories of white villains oppressing black victims, Jewison used actual Arkansas National Guard members to create brutal authenticity around the complex ways racism poisoned everyone it touched. Despite 3 Oscar nominations and critical acclaim, the film forced audiences to confront an inconvenient reality that prejudice could destroy people from within their own community. Most moviegoers preferred their racism stories with clear good guys and bad guys, not this mirror reflecting the ugly truth of internalized hate. Number 8. Under Fire, 1983. Roger Spottiswoode made the ultimate Hollywood taboo by creating the only major film to openly side with America's enemies during the Reagan era. This thriller, starring Nick Nolte, Gene Hackman, and Joanna Cassidy as journalists covering Nicaragua's revolution, was essentially Sandinista propaganda disguised as entertainment, directly opposing U.S. foreign policy, while Americans were debating military intervention. Despite a 91% Rotten Tomatoes rating and Roger Ebert calling it one of the year's best films, audiences rejected this anti-American message. It bombed spectacularly, earning only $5.6 million at the box office. Even Orion Pictures' own executives were terrified, with production chief Mike Medavoy frantically claiming it had political content but no political intent to avoid a conservative backlash. Most Americans simply refused to watch a movie that portrayed communist revolutionaries as heroes, while their own government was funding the opposition. Hollywood studios were terrified to release a film that sided with America's enemies. Hit that like and subscribe button if you think filmmakers should have the guts to tell uncomfortable truths. Number 7. Purple Hearts, 1984. Sidney J. Furie committed career suicide by making a Vietnam love story when Hollywood only wanted angry, politically charged war films. After over 100 actresses auditioned for the female lead, Cheryl Ladd was suddenly suggested and hired on the spot. Pure coincidence that her husband was the half-brother of Alan Ladd Jr., who ran the Ladd Company financing the entire film. Roger Ebert annihilated it with a brutal half-star review, calling it bad plotting and soap opera, while audiences stayed away in droves. The film currently holds a devastating 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, proving that in 1984, Hollywood only wanted one kind of Vietnam story. Number 6. The Dogs of War, 1980. Christopher Walken starred in Hollywood's most authentic mercenary film because the source material came straight from real arms dealers. Author Frederick Forsyth literally pretended to finance an actual coup in Equatorial Guinea, fooling genuine mercenaries and weapon smugglers into revealing the brutal economics of African warfare. This production was so toxic that 3 A-list directors, Don Siegel, Michael Cimino, and Norman Jewison, all fled before John Irvin stepped into the chaos. Tom Berenger got his scenes butchered in the editing room, leaving Walken alone to carry this prophetic tale of corporate-sponsored violence. The film predicted privatized warfare decades before companies like Blackwater made it mainstream. But 1980s audiences rejected this uncomfortable peek behind the military-industrial curtain. We're halfway through Hollywood's most buried war films, and the stories just keep getting more insane. Hit that like button if you're as shocked as we are by how the industry treated these masterpieces. Number 5. The Beast, 1988. George Zunza commanded a Soviet tank crew trapped in Afghanistan in Kevin Reynolds' forgotten masterpiece, but his dedication to the role went far beyond acting. Zunza campaigned hard for the part and transformed his body through an intense diet and workout routine, losing over 50 pounds in the process. The production moved to Israel's Negev desert, where they used real Soviet T-55 tanks provided by the Israeli military to create thunderous, authentic battle sequences. Despite this commitment to realism and critical praise from military experts, this gripping portrayal of tank warfare in Afghanistan disappeared without a trace, earning virtually nothing at the box office. Number 4. Salvador, 1986. Oliver Stone co-wrote and directed this brutal war drama with journalist Richard Boyle, starring James Woods. Stone struggled so hard to get funding that he was forced to put a second mortgage on his house until producer John Daly pledged support. The production faced real dangers when Woods discovered a blank cartridge in a rifle that could have seriously injured him, leading to fierce arguments on set. When Woods and Jim Belushi met their real-life counterparts at dinner, Belushi stormed out in rage, while Woods clashed with the actual Richard Boyle. The film grossed only $1.5 million in the United States, barely recovering Stone's investment. Number 3. Hamburger Hill, 1987. John Irvin's Vietnam film starred unknowns including Michael Boatman, Don Cheadle, and Dylan McDermott in his debut. All 14 main actors underwent 2 weeks of grueling military training at Subic Bay Naval Base in the Philippines before filming began. The 11-week shoot had a $6.5 million budget and used an 1,800-foot Philippine hill as a stand-in for the infamous Hamburger Hill. Crews had to plant 1,000 trees, install 5 off-camera stairways, and construct a pool of sanitized mud to protect actors' health. Paramount initially passed on the film, only picking it up after production wrapped because Vietnam wasn't considered commercially viable. Number 2. Gardens of Stone, 1987. Francis Ford Coppola directed this somber Vietnam-era drama starring James Caan as an Arlington National Cemetery honor guard. Tragedy struck when Coppola's 22-year-old son, Giancarlo, was killed in a speedboating accident on Memorial Day, 1986. Griffin O'Neill was piloting the boat and attempted to pass between 2 boats connected by a tow line. O'Neill ducked in time, but Giancarlo was struck and killed instantly. O'Neill had been cast in the film but was replaced after the accident. Military production files coldly noted the tragedy set filming back approximately 4 days, while Coppola struggled to complete a movie about fathers losing sons. Number 1. Come and See, 1985. Soviet director Alem Klimov fought 8 years of government censorship before authorities allowed him to produce this anti-war masterpiece. Klimov shot the film chronologically over 9 months, putting teenage actor Alexei Kravchenko through what he described as the most debilitating fatigue and hunger. The production used real bullets flying just above actors' heads to create genuine terror in their performances. Kravchenko's transformation was so dramatic that rumors spread his hair turned gray naturally, though special silver grease paint was actually used. The film was so disturbing that ambulances were called to theaters to treat viewers who collapsed during screenings. This is why Alem Klimov never directed another film. He said he'd shown everything about human nature that needed to be shown. From Soviet censorship battles to tragic accidents to financial ruin, these 1980s war films prove that making great cinema sometimes costs everything. Hit that like button and hit subscribe for more buried Hollywood secrets. Then tell us in the comments which shocking story hit you the hardest.